Mint is still $15 a month for premium wireless. And if you haven't made the switch yet, here are 15 reasons why you should. 1, it's $15 a month. 2, seriously, it's $15 a month. 3, no big contracts. 4, I use it. 5, my mom uses it. Are you playing me off? That's what's happening, right? Okay, give it a try at mintmobile.com/switch.
Upfront payment of $45 for 3-month plan, $15 per month equivalent required. New customer offer first 3 months only. Then full price plan options available. Taxes and fees extra. See mintmobile.com.
As a scientist, I can tell you that Sundays are only 24 hours long. But with NFL Sunday Ticket and YouTube TV, you get every game every Sunday all in one place. That's upwards of 30 hours of NFL in one day. How can there be 30 hours in 24 hours, you ask? I have a theory. Magic. New users get NFL Sunday Ticket for 8 payments of $34.50 per month. Sign up at nflsundayticket.com. Local and national games on YouTube TV. NFL Sunday Ticket for out-of-market games excludes digital-only games and commercial use. Terms and embargoes apply. Availability varies.
Welcome into 49ers Access. My name is Sterling Bennett, and today we're going to recap and react to the San Francisco 49ers naming their practice squad for the 2025 season and get into many more of the roster moves that were had today, including signing Marquez Valdes-Scantling at the wide receiver position, and discuss many of the injuries updates that we got today from Kyle Shanahan and John Lynch. So much to get into, so stay tuned and like, share, and subscribe to the show. And let's begin the evening with some housekeeping because, like I already said, General Manager John Lynch offered up a lot of updates in regards to the injuries on the roster as they currently stand. And I know a lot has been made of the injuries, who's in, who's out, who's healthy, who's not. But we got some good news in regards to Dominic Pooh and Yetur Gross-Matos. Both those guys are on track for week number 1. Although Yetur Gross-Matos' status is a little more uncertain, Dominic Pooh seems to be on track to return against the Seattle Seahawks for the season opener. Jordan James and Upton Stout, rookies that did not participate in the preseason. James had the broken finger, Stout had the calf injury. Both those guys did return to practice today as well. So again, San Francisco, for all the injuries they've had, once again, in back-to-back practices, getting healthy. This is on top of getting back Micah Williams and CJ West and others a couple days ago. So some good stuff there. However, where there is good, there's always bad. Where there is yin, there is always yang. Where there is Harvey Dent, there is always a two-face. And in this case, as expected, wide receiver Jacob Cowing was placed on injured reserve today. Now they are not locked into a decision to either bring him back or have it be season-ending. They now have a choice at either one of those avenues for him, but they re-signed punter Thomas Morstead to fill his spot. And while we await another move to be made, San Francisco did sign, or I guess in this case re-signed, wide receiver Russell Gage to the 53-man active roster, a player that I assumed would have made the cut off the rip. Didn't happen. They cut him and they brought him back. So I don't know who gets moved there. I don't know who who gets cut to make way for Russell Gage. I kind of think that maybe Jordan Watkins may find himself on injured reserve. Didn't practice today. I know he should be back before week 6, 7, 8, but the first 4 weeks are kind of up in the air for him. Maybe he is an IR candidate, or they go and cut, say, a Luke Gifford and only carry 5 or 4 linebackers, and they utilize Curtis Robinson as the 5th one off the practice squad. A lot of moves still to be made, but those are the first chunk, the first wave, if you will, of the signings they have done after roster cutdown day yesterday. Russell Gage is back. Thomas Morstead is back. And a lot of guys have returned from injury. However, I will say this. I've said it a couple times already, I'm not convinced that Cowing needs to be brought back, especially if he's returning around the time that DeMarcus Robinson comes back and Maybe Jauan Jennings is back. We'll get to him in a second because, oh my God, John Lynch did not seem happy when asked about him today. And then when Brandon Ayuk comes back, where does Cowling fit in there? If you have Russell Gage, which there's no ties to him, but you just signed Marquez Valdes-Scantling, what are the ties there? You're talking about bringing in Kendrick Bourne. Cowling could be a guy that doesn't play again for a second straight year, and in that case, he finds himself on the chopping block entering year 3, but that is a long ways away. Don't want to get too far ahead of ourselves, but we talked about the Isaac Guerendo stock being pretty low. That Jacob Cowling stock is equally or maybe just above the Guerendo stock right now. It is also very, very low, at least in my opinion. But that brings us to the Marquez Valdes-Scantling signing. After roster cutdown day yesterday, a lot of questions as to what San Francisco was going to do with the wide receiver room. We talked here on the show about some guys they could bring in. Obviously, they don't listen to me, which that's fine, do what you want, but San Francisco did, or at least was connected last night to Marquez Valdes-Scantling. I believe Aaron Wilson was the one that connected them. He was choosing between San Francisco and Pittsburgh. We were kind of awaiting what San Francisco would do. Would they pivot? Would they not? That deal is official, although it hasn't been announced yet. John Lynch did say the deal is done in his press conference prior to practice this evening, but I've seen a lot of mixed reactions to the signing. And like the Sky Moore deal, I'm not one that is gung-ho for this. I think he fills a need in the intermediate. I think that Marquez Valdes-Scantling can provide something to the roster while you await to get back your bigger receivers, Ayuk, Jennings, Robinson, and maybe even Jordan Watkins. But he does give you a bigger body guy. He's a bigger dude, taller guy. He can play the X wide receiver spot on the offense, so it does give you some much-needed depth. And he's a guy that, let's say you want to cut Russell Gage during the year and bring him back on the practice squad, you can almost keep MVS at the X, or at least keep MVS on the roster as a deep threat throughout almost the entirety of the season. So I do like the move because in one instance, it's a stopgap to get you to your guys returning. On the other instance, he's a guy that has won 2 Super Bowls. He's a proven guy, albeit not as this big, awesome number 1 receiver, number 2 guy. He's a 4, he's a 5. He's someone that can play in certain roles and excel, which when you look at his stats, it doesn't scream that. However, I think it's pretty obvious what his role will be in the offense. And I think it really comes down to, well, MVS clearly isn't your first choice to upgrade with who they had on the roster at the time, where you love Pearsall, has a very expansive route tree, but Gage, there was no promise you brought him back, albeit they did today. So that's 2 guys can run the NFL route tree. Jauan Jennings' status is up in the air. Is he going to be ready for week 1? You just don't know. But so if he can't, he's out. Then you're relying on guys like maybe Jordan Watkins, Robbie Chosen Anderson. Your route tree gets really limited, which thus limits Kyle Shanahan's offense in return. So getting MVS in the offense allows Kyle to have 2-3 receivers that can run the entire route tree, and in MVS's case, give you some deep threat speed at the same time. Again, not a big signing. We have no idea what the actual financial portion of the deal is, but it's a 1-year deal, not much connected to him being MVS for a long time. So I like the signing for depth. I like the signing for a Band-Aid, if you will, on the current receiver depth chart. And the last 2 seasons, again, the stats don't really work in MVS's favor. And there is some things to like. 40 receptions the last 2 years, 5 touchdowns, caught 4 touchdowns last season, with time split between the Saints and the Bills for around 726 yards the last 2 years. So some inconsistencies for sure, but you do see 5 touchdowns is not too bad. Certainly more proven than Jordan Watkins, Robbie Chosen Anderson, Russell Gage, who was hurt last year for a long time. So it just gives you a more proven body in the room, in a room that was really unproven after cut down day yesterday. He gives you a deep threat, fills the X receiver need, and the beautiful thing about this is, yes, he's a deep threat, but his average depth of target was nearly 20 yards downfield, so he's a legit burner for your offense, which they've been trying to find. You like what Pearsall can give you downfield. You obviously love Kittle and Christian McCaffrey, but you're kind of hoping that when Ayuk comes back, you can get downfield deeper and extend your passing offense, but also Jordan Watkins, where with Watkins out, MVS slides in. It's a reason why you kept Robbie Chosen Anderson on the practice squad, give your offense some speed, and hopefully give you some verticality to your offense. However, the one big downfall to MVS is the drops are pretty evident, and it's a very big concern. He has 24 career drops in his tenure in the NFL with the Chiefs and the Bills and the Saints, and I guess a short stint with the Seattle Seahawks during this past preseason. So while, yes, he gives you speed, verticality, you can hit him in stride, doesn't always mean he'll come down with the football, but in the intermediate, the San Francisco is desperate to find bodies, hence why you are seeing them have some interest in Kendrick Bourne and sign MVS here. Think of both those guys, if they sign Bourne, they already signed MVS, as just simple band-aids. Guys that can hold the fort down, they have no contractual ties to for a long time. It's not big money. Similar to, let's say, Brian Robinson, right? You trade a 6th-round pick for him. Washington pays half the contract. There is no, big financial tie to those guys. Now, you like what Robinson gives you much more than, say, MVS, but San Francisco is trying to bargain bin shop their way into band-aiding their receiver room, thus MVS being brought in. I like the move. It's not a big one. It's a small one, but it can give you something more than, say, Robbie Chosen Anderson, or Russell Gage, or Jordan Watkins, or Malik Turner could. And it felt like yesterday San Francisco was going to be reliant on practice squad receivers to help make out the room. Where now you're bringing MVS, and that doesn't seem to be the case. The other knock on this move is we don't really know what or who is getting cut to allow MVS to be on the roster. Again, you sign Gage, who is the person getting cut for that guy? You sign MVS, who's the person getting cut for MVS? I do believe, again, Jordan Watkins could be an IR candidate. If he's going to miss 4 weeks, put him on the shelf. You'll be fine. Give him time to recuperate, get healthy, and maybe in a month and a half or whatnot, he becomes less of a priority to bring back and more of a luxury of one of the 8 guys you can return during the season. But that's kind of a wishful thinking thought there. The other one, the big one, is Jauan Jennings. And I want to get into Jauan because right now the receiver room is Ricky Pearsall, Sky Moore, Russell Gage, Marquez Valdes-Scantling, and Jauan Jennings. And I'm not sure if you guys caught John Lynch and Kyle Shanahan's press conference today. John Lynch had to answer about 4 or 5-ish questions about Jauan Jennings' status, and he seemed done, irritated, pissed off, upset, whatever negative adjective you want to utilize to describe John Lynch. The hair was distraught. He was given the exact same answers. He was short and to the point. You can tell, whether it's because of the calf injury or because of the contract stuff, they are kind of coming to a head with Jauan Jennings. I do believe Jauan Jennings' calf is an issue. I am one that believes that it's not simply just contractual-based problems they have in between them. However, they asked John Lynch, are you guys going to trade Jauan Jennings? He said, nope, not an option. Not going to happen. And that was it. They asked him, did Jauan ask for a trade? He said, yep, he did. We said no, and we moved on since then. You can tell. They want to get past this. They're irritated. They're done, which maybe lends more to the idea that this is more contractual based than not. which could be the case. Usually you don't show frustration to that extent. If it's just an injury, usually you want to give guys time and whatnot, but it does seem like maybe things are more contract related than I'm leading, or I believe they are, because Lynch was very upset, very irritated, and maybe that was because they badgered him, but he essentially told the media today that Jauan Jennings came in, wanted the new deal, asked for a trade when we said no. We said, we're not going to give you a trade. We'll try to work things out with you. And they have been trying to get a deal done with Jauan the entire offseason. Lynch confirmed that today too. So they are trying to narrow things down, but the longer this thing waits, the longer this thing kind of festers under the surface, the more pressure builds up for week 1 against Seattle. And I would assume if Jauan is not out there week 1, something maybe irrational may happen. I'm not saying a trade or something like that, but it does force San Francisco's hand to either say, okay, if the calf injury is legit, we want you back healthy. We have to find a room for receivers on the roster. Jauan Jennings, you're on injured reserve for the first 4 to 6 weeks this year, which isn't what they want to do, but it does hurt Jauan in the process. Lynch also did confirm today that the incentives in Jauan Jennings' deal were all for last season. That's not on the table this year. Now, maybe there are some. He didn't go much into that, but he did say the incentives are not in Jauan Jennings' contract for this year, so that may be another reason as to why Jauan wants a higher guaranteed contract, but it does seem as if things are coming to a head. Lynch is pissed, Kyle's pissed, and if they don't get a deal done soon, maybe Jauan Jennings finds himself being on injured reserve. I don't think a trade is viable. I think trading Jauan like Ayuk last year, which they didn't do then, the time has passed. It is either play or not. Put up or shut up. And I think San Francisco very much is in that point of time where it's like, look, we're done. We're done. Stop messing around. Either you're hurt or you're not. You can play or you can't. Sign the contract or we're done here. That's what it seems like is the case right now for San Francisco. It sucks to be there. I don't blame them for this. This, to me, is a mandate handed down from Jed York and Prognorate. Kyle clearly wants to pay his guys. If the reports are true, he ran up to John Lynch's office and said, don't trade Ayuk, don't trade Ayuk. I think of the receivers, of the offensive players, Jauan Jennings is the guy Kyle would really want to pay that's up for a new contract, whereas Jed York is like, no. I gave you guys an empty checkbook, a blank checkbook, and you burned through it, and now you have to reel things back in. And I think Jauan is a unfortunate factor in this, or someone that is kind of facing the repercussions of Jauan Jennings wanting a new contract. The 49ers 2025 asks here in the YouTube chat, even if Jauan Jennings is put on injured reserve, would you want Jennings becoming a distraction on the sideline? Well, that's simple. One, I don't think Jennings would do that. I don't think Jennings would go that far. He himself has kept all of this private, right? This isn't Brandon Ayuk. He's not going on podcasts. He's not making things public. The only glimpse of things that may have been related to what's happening with the contract stuff in San Francisco was the Instagram story post he had a couple days ago, where it was like, you messed with the wrong dude, whatever, which we don't know if that is contract related. Most guys laugh it off and say, I'm just having fun. Where Ayuk last year was going on podcasts and posting on social media, talking to TMZ. I don't think Jauan is that guy. He wants to get paid. And maybe we do see a ramped up, Instagram, campaign to get paid by the team. Maybe he removes the Niners off of his Instagram, which is nothing new for the San Francisco 49ers. But I don't think Jauan becomes a distraction. And if anything, if the calf is that big of a deal, just tell Jauan, go in the suite. That's where you're supposed to be. Go up in the suite. That's where you need to be. So there is ways San Francisco can avoid having Jauan be a distraction, but I don't think he would even be one if he was sidelined for a 4-week period or maybe a month and a half of time to begin the season. So I don't think that would be a problem, but it really does put San Francisco in a bind with the receivers because let's say Jauan can't play. That does make it easier to carry guys like Gage and MVS because they would take up one of his roster spots, but it does put San Francisco behind the 8 ball because you only have 4 guys on your current roster as receivers if Jauan can't go. Right now you have 5, and even then, Pearsall's the 1. If Jennings can't play, who's the 2? Russell Gage? Sky Moore? MVS? I'd probably lean towards MVS, but I don't really know if that's the case. Maybe it's Russell Gage and MVS becomes the slot receiver in the meantime.
My cat Freddie loves to be brushed and cuddled. But stirring up his cat allergens meant sneezing and itchy eyes. Then I found Purina One Live Clear. It's cat food that reduced the major allergen and my suffering in as little as 21 days. Now, we feel closer than ever. If you have issues with cat allergens, you really need to try Purina One Live Clear.
Try new Purina One Live Clear today. Purina One, a difference from day one.
But Sky Moore's been here longer, albeit MVS played in the Kubiak system in Seattle, which shouldn't be too hard to kind of come in and assimilate to San Francisco's offense. But it puts San Francisco in a really tricky spot. And I think something has to be coming to a head with the offense as we speak. I do want to move along into the YouTube chat for 1 second before I get to San Francisco's waiver wire claim today, that being Jordan Jefferson, defensive tackle from the Jacksonville Jaguars. Kawachipto says, we are getting closer to having a real roster. Yes, we are. San Francisco is getting healthy. San Francisco is narrowing down their roster. Obviously, it's already at 53, 55 guys, and you'll figure things out tomorrow too. But I love, for the most part, their practice squad. We'll get into some guys I wish they would have claimed throughout the day, but none of their guys got claimed off waivers that you hoped got brought back. I see Omega Dread asking, what about the Hulk, that being Sebastian Valdez? This is why you shouldn't overreact to roster cut-down day releases and waves, because Sebastian Valdez, the standout UDFA, was able to be retained on the practice squad by San Francisco. So some really good news there. And San Francisco did not lose a single young player they were hoping to retain. They did lose 2 veterans, but we'll get to those guys later on in a second. We have the 49ers 2025 asking or saying here in the YouTube chat that I don't understand why the Niners brought back the same players they cut. Is the Niners not interested in developing new players? We might as well bring back Dante Pettis or Ambry Thomas. I think we need to bring in another person to evaluate players. Louis Reddick from ESPN. This is becoming a problem. I'd push back on that to say that while it's a pretty bad sign that the NFL didn't value the depth that you had, but we knew coming into the season San Francisco's depth wasn't going to be there because there was going to be an over-reliance on veteran players that haven't been able to stick other places and younger guys that are unproven. So sometimes that leads to a lack of depth. I do think San Francisco does have some depth. Running back certainly has it. The defensive line certainly has it. Linebacker definitely has it, but the offensive line has some questions. The receiver room definitely has some questions. Cornerback has some, but I push back on the point that San Francisco shouldn't have brought back the players they cut, because you cut guys, some of them at least, with the intention of putting them on your practice squad. And I think San Francisco, when you think of evaluating players and having young guys on the roster, 10 of their 11 draft picks, or I guess 9 of 11, made the roster this year. The only 2 guys that were drafted and didn't make the roster was Junior Bergen, who was brought back on the practice squad, and Curtis Rourke, who is currently injured. So the entire draft class essentially is still within the organization. That's a really good sign if you are San Francisco, where you had to bank on these guys making an impact for you, and right now, they have done that for you. Sebastian Valdez, being a UDFA, a standout, comes back on the practice squad. You got to retain Jacob Robinson, another standout UDFA on injured reserve. And so I do think San Francisco overall, albeit have many questions left to answer, did a fairly good job with their young talent. There were some guys I wish they would have signed. Of course there were. Plenty of guys I wanted to claim and sign to the practice squad, but sometimes those things don't work in your favor, and sometimes they do. I think being able to retain Sebastian Valdez was a big one for them right now. And also, even Corey Kiner, who unfortunately was injured against the Raiders, placed on injured reserve after that game, was let go today by San Francisco via the injury settlement. Even he was on the roster after cutdown day for, 8 hours or less. So I think San Francisco did a really good job retaining their young players. But other than that, I think in a year where San Francisco really needed to hit a home run with the draft, when 9 of your 11 guys make the roster, there's some draft classes, especially in San Francisco's recent years, where one guy remains of 7 picks. So obviously time will tell, who rises and who falls off the roster. But overall, I think they did a great job scouting talent and evaluating it, at least in this year's draft class as a whole. Let's continue with the next roster move San Francisco made early in the day after waiver claims. About 9 a.m. was when waiver claims were announced this morning on the West Coast, and San Francisco surprisingly claimed defensive tackle Jordan Jefferson from the Jacksonville Jaguars. And when I saw that, I said, are they really going to carry 12, 13 defensive linemen? Like that, there's no way they're going to do that. So you instantly say, who's getting cut? My assumption was Robert Beal Jr., maybe Jordan Elliott because of the contract stuff, but no, San Francisco did indeed waive Evan Anderson today to make way for Jordan Jefferson. It does seem like their plan is to bring back Evan Anderson on the practice squad, so if they can make that happen, no harm, no foul there. But a lot of people were asking, who is Jordan Jefferson? Who is this guy? There's like 19 Jordans on the roster. Jordan Watkins, Jordan James, Jordan Jefferson, Jordan Elliott. Who is this new Jordan they have on the roster? But to give you more insight, he is a 2024 fourth-round pick of the Jacksonville Jaguars out of LSU. And you might be wondering, what's the connection? Why Jordan Jefferson and not, say, Esa Pole or Logan Brown, a tackle? Why not somebody else maybe you wanted to claim off waivers from a different team? Damian Martinez, Chris Pooh, the linebacker. Why Jordan Jefferson? Ethan Waugh was in San Francisco for a pretty long time in the front office. He left San Francisco to join Trent Baalke in Jacksonville, which saying Trent Baalke usually scares people away, but in this case, maybe helps San Francisco out because he knows firsthand about Jordan Jefferson being in Jacksonville's front office when they drafted him last year in the 4th round, because Waugh is now back in San Francisco after a stint in Jacksonville's front office. So he has firsthand experience with Jordan Jefferson. He's a 6'2", 316-pound defensive tackle, big space-eating two-gap player. And I know that I don't love swapping Anderson for Jordan Jefferson. I want to get that out of the way now. I would rather have Evan Anderson. However, I do think getting Jefferson in a new system, I do think he has the archetype to be a space-eating run defender where, say, next year Jordan Elliott's gone via free agency. Jefferson can step up and be kind of a depth role player for you where you have a lot of questions on the defensive line. I don't mind them rotating guys in and out of there. Obviously, you want the best guy to win, but with questions with, Alfred Collins' health Alfred Collins' pad level and Clea Davis's health and Jordan Elliott's consistency. I don't mind them swapping guys in and out, especially if you can retain Evan Anderson, who was a UDFA last year, compared to Jefferson being a 4th-round pick. Clearly, there was a big, play level difference, being an FAU guy, that being Anderson, and Jefferson being an LSU. It seems San Francisco believes that Jefferson can give you more, at least as a run defender, immediately, where Anderson gives you really nothing as a pass rusher, albeit PFF was really kind to him for it. It just seems like Anderson was really good in a bad year for San Francisco, and they're trying to kind of push that behind them this season. So it does seem like that San Francisco values what Jefferson can bring to the table. Had a 63.3 run defense grade last year. It's not great. He had a 63.2 pass rush grade via PFF last year, but also not his forte. He's not as good as a pass rusher as Evan Anderson, but again, not brought in to be one. They have CJ West now. They have Alfred Collins now. You have a healthy Kalia Davis now. It may have made Evan Anderson's role rather redundant, where San Francisco really wants to improve the run defense, and we saw during the preseason, the run defense really was not that great, so I don't mind a swap here. However, in preseason, the past couple weeks or so, Jefferson has a 64.8 run defense grade with 4 run stops, more than he had the entirety of last year, so you are seeing some growth rather quickly from Jordan Jefferson. Has a really good first step, and is somebody I think can match up against NFL centers, move him around, and kind of do a push and pull to get by him. So there is a lot of good things there with Jordan Jefferson being a run defender, being a space eater, and hopefully taking up double teams. You saw a video I put out on social media today on Twitter, maybe gave you a clearer indication as to where he would be as a run defender for San Francisco. There are some pitfalls, though. Leverage, a big concern for him, like any 6'2", 6'3", and I guess now for Collins' case, 6'5", defensive tackle. When you raise up and you lose leverage and guys can get to your chest, that's when your rep is over. That's when you lost, and it's really hard to find your way back into a play. So leverage can be a problem for Jordan Jefferson, and contact balance is also an issue. One first hit can kind of rattle him somewhat, so get him with Chris Kocurek, get him with a better strength and conditioning coach, strengthen his base, get his density higher, and I think Jordan Jefferson may be able to give you a little bit more against the run than Evan Anderson, but I really hope they can bring back Evan Anderson on the practice squad. I think the motto this year for San Francisco's defensive line really should be the more depth, the merrier, because a lot of unproven pieces, veterans and rookies. The more guys you have you can push in and out of there and see what fits, the better. San Francisco, don't forget, despite having 9 draft picks on the roster, is still searching for answers on the defensive line. So you love Bosa, you love Huff, you love what the young guys can bring, but still, it's not just about this year. Yes, you want to win as many games as you can, but you are trying to build a fortified structure for years to come, and finding new guys off the waiver wire is never a bad thing. I think of it as what a rebuilding team would do in the MLB, right? You're on the waiver wire, you're trying to find these prospects that teams are trying to kind of sneak through, and you bring them into your system, and sometimes it's painful to lose guys you like, but thankfully, losing Evan Anderson is not that big of a loss if you can see growth from Jordan Jefferson with this defense this year. He'll probably be running with the 3s to begin, but there is room for growth quickly on San Francisco's defensive line, so I'm a big fan of the move. Just when it comes down to the semantics of it, I like the momentum, the motto they're going by. Just, hey, let's cram as much as we can into the defensive line this year and see what sticks. I like that from San Francisco this season. Before I get into the practice squad itself, I want to ask you guys to like, share, and subscribe to the show. And if you want to see San Francisco play in person, go to an MLB game. The playoffs are right around the corner, about a month and a half away. Who doesn't love October baseball? or going to a concert, or maybe your wife wants to celebrate Travis Kelce and Taylor Swift getting engaged in her own way. Go to SeatGeek.com and you can save yourself $20 off your first purchase by using the #1 ticketing app in America. I use it, my wife uses it, my parents use it. If you want a sporting event or concert ticket, go to SeatGeek.com and use promo code 49ErsAccess, 49 ERSACCESS at SeatGeek.com and save yourself $20 off your first purchase. Okay, let's get into the title of the show. 34 minutes in to the podcast, because we have to discuss San Francisco's practice squad. When it was initially announced, I had a lot of questions, and I still have a lot of questions, but some things have become clearer for myself. I love and I am floored by the fact that San Francisco did get to bring back Sebastian Valdez. The entire fan base was pissed and angry that why'd they cut him? Why'd you keep Moody? Why'd you keep this guy over this guy? And why was Valdez not a priority? Sometimes patience is a virtue. Sometimes a risk is worth taking, and sometimes you get burned, and also sometimes you win. San Francisco, I think, did win with cutting Sebastian Valdez. I don't think it necessarily was the smartest move, because you could have lost him, but San Francisco lucked out. Nobody claimed him. It's a reason why yesterday I told you that I think he might pass through waivers, and also there's a reason why other teams have guys they want to bring back of their own. There was a handful of waiver claims today. San Francisco obviously had one themselves, but not really a lot of movement across the league. You got to think, 16 guys make the practice squad. Most players that are on the practice squad are in camp with that same team. So I think we make too much of roster cut down day cuts. Obviously, you want to keep guys you like in camp on the practice squad in case they're called upon, but it's a little too hyped up of like, oh, you're cutting Valdez, it's over, and you see what happens the next day. They bring him back. Was it luck? 100%, but sometimes it pays more to be lucky than good. So San Francisco does indeed get lucky in bringing back Sebastian Valdez. I also love they get to bring back linebacker Curtis Robinson. Love Curtis Robinson. I think he'll find his way on the actual 53-man roster this season. I don't know how long-lived Luke Gifford's time in San Francisco will be with the receiver issues they have. I think he's a primary candidate to get cut in the meantime. I also believe that San Francisco can cut other guys like Drew Moss, who I don't want to cut, but the odds are he passes through waivers at a higher rate or a higher percentage tomorrow than, say, 2 days ago. So I do think that there is a way San Francisco can cut some guys that maybe they thought wouldn't get past waivers on Thursday or Wednesday compared to Monday or Tuesday. So look out for that. But I do love Curtis Robinson being back. The practice squad is a great place for him. Veteran guy, knows the offense, can play Mike linebacker, can fill in at a really high level for them. I think, had they not brought in Gifford and Bethune not grown quickly in year 2, that Robinson makes the roster outright. And I think at a certain point he will be on the roster by the end of the season. So love that move. It's a great depth piece to have. It also affords San Francisco the ability to, again, cut guys like Luke Gifford and maintain some depth in that room in the meantime. So love that move. Happy he's back. Love Curtis Robinson himself. He's a good dude. He's earned his way on the roster. I also love being able to bring back Jalen Graham. I thought Graham, although I knew he wouldn't make the roster, he has shown a lot of growth this preseason. Looked like an NFL caliber player for the first time. I was surprised nobody claimed him, but again, waiver claims get tricky. Some teams that maybe need a linebacker can pluck him off a practice squad, but I think San Francisco, like I said during the preseason itself, has a ton of depth at linebacker, and that persists and continues on the practice squad. So happy they brought back Robinson, Valdez, and Graham. Also, very happy they got to bring back Junior Bergen. Now, Bergen is not going to give you much as a wide receiver. He's not going to give you Pro Bowl caliber return man's, efficiency to word it that, or production. But I saw some folks complaining on Twitter and social media. And I know John Chapman does not like this move, and I love John. We just happen to disagree here, that when you cut Dallis Flowers and don't bring him back in the practice squad, and I don't really know if Sky Moore is in it for the long haul once San Francisco gets back their bigger name receivers. And you have Isaac Rendo, who seemingly is kind of probably going to be the RB3, RB4 at one point this year, and is designated as a special teamer early in the season. He'll probably be a return man. So I don't mind bringing back Bergen. I think it's a luxury to have him there. I think also, like I already kind of laid out, they don't have a real return man. And having him out there in case somebody goes down or has an elevation hurts nobody. He doesn't have to be activated every single week. It can be week 1 through 3. He can sit on his hands in the practice squad and grow. And when injuries culminate, maybe he gets called up. I think he's a guy, again, that would benefit from being on a roster that didn't have so many receiver injuries. But San Francisco cut Dallis Flowers, who was their number 2 kick return guy during the preseason. They also brought in Sky Moore, who, again, I just don't know how long he lasts on the roster. So I think it's a good move. What does he give you as a receiver? Nothing, but he was never really supposed to. So it's more of we have 16 spots on the practice squad. Nobody else really values you, but we may actually need you at some point in time. So I like the move. Bring him back. I'm happy for him. And happy San Francisco got to retain the final piece of their entire draft class. Every single one of those guys made the roster, and a UDFA also made the roster. So a lot of young guys on this roster currently that I love. Papa J says here, Bergen dropped the ball against the Raiders and the Chargers. Again, as a receiver, not a thing. He's not going to do stuff for you, but as a return man, I get it. He muffed the punt. I don't think he had a single muffed punt in college. So I do think, well, yes, you want to clean that up. And no, I don't think he is Ronnie Bell, Papa J. Ronnie Bell,
This episode is brought to you by Nespresso Virtual Coffee Machines. Ready to enjoy the bold flavors of barista-quality Nespresso iced coffee at home? Simply fill a glass with ice and press the brew button on your virtual pop machine to enjoy rich double espressos roasted to stand up even when chilled. Refreshingly bold iced coffee. Refreshingly easy to make at home. Visit Nespresso.com to shop now.
As someone that was in practice or at practice every single day that Ronnie Bell was in San Francisco, his hands were terrible in practice. His hands were atrocious in practice. It was to a point where I can see why you retain Junior Bergen, right? Fairly sure-handed on returns, albeit the one mistake against the Chargers didn't do much for you, but Ronnie Bell was a disaster everywhere he played, where I think Bergen, as a return man only, could maybe give you something. And again, Bergen, I think, only dropped 1 punt in the preseason, the big muffed punt against the Chargers. So I do think that he's probably going to get called up at some point and play a role at some point on special teams, which I don't think is a bad thing. He's young. I do like him being brought back, though, on the practice squad. Also a big fan of the return of Trevis Gipson. Had a really good preseason. I didn't think he made the roster, but depth piece, a guy that has and been more proven than most on the roster in regards to depth. Had a handful of sacks a couple years ago, I think, in Chicago. Been around for a while, I think like 8-7 years in the NFL. This gives you a veteran piece alongside younger guys like Sebastian Valdez, or in the case where Bill Jr. doesn't come together and doesn't improve in year, 3 or 4 now? And then if Yetur Gross-Matos isn't back soon or the injuries pile up, Gipson can provide valuable depth, albeit not playing much on the defensive line. So I like bringing him back. I thought he had a really good preseason, so love that. I do like the Sincere McCormick signing from the practice squad. San Francisco also saw him in the preseason. The one thing I'll say about Sincere McCormick, while San Francisco didn't retain Dallis Flowers, they lost Chaz Surratt to the Seahawks, who signed on their active roster today, and they also lost Jeff Wilson Jr. That to me sucked. I didn't love losing Jeff Wilson Jr. I love El Jefe. Thought he'd be back, but while Sincere McCormick doesn't give you 4.3 speed, 4.5 speed, I think he ran a 4.6 at the NFL Combine, which was a handful of years ago for him. But the one trait you love about McCormick is the contact balance. Not going to be a wide receiver for you that much, but he fights through contact. He stays up. He can, fight for the extra yards. He's decisive in his runs. The vision isn't great, but he knows how to get, low between the hips, move around guys. So I like the pick of McCormick. I don't know exactly where he fits in when it's all said and done. However, with the injuries San Francisco has had and the losses they've had to Kiner and Taylor Jr., I do like the addition of McCormick to the backfield on the practice squad. Gives you a body that does fit Kyle Shanahan's system and the things he values as a runner. Like take Elijah Mitchell, for example. Elijah Mitchell wasn't that fast. Elijah Mitchell wasn't going to burn by guys, but what he had was contact balance. And he couldn't stay healthy, but he'd fight through yardage. He'd stay up when he was healthy in 2021. McCormick does have a little bit of that. I don't think he's as good as a healthy Elijah Mitchell, but sometimes the best availability or the best ability is availability. So I do like getting McCormick on the practice squad this year. Does he stay there? I don't know, but I do like him. Lori Matthews asks, who got Jeff Wilson Jr.? The Miami Dolphins. He was back to Miami, right? Was there last year, got cut, and now was brought back to San Francisco. And they bring him back to Miami, which Jeff Wilson Jr. looked really good during the preseason, but they have a lot of injuries piling up already in Miami's backfield, so that makes sense to bring him back. Strawberry Reacts in the YouTube chat asks me, do you think they bring back Corey Kiner when he's healthy to the practice squad? It's an option. I don't know what Kiner wants, obviously, being, playing college in Cincinnati. I think he fits San Francisco's scheme extremely well. He showed off in the preseason, but I would love that. I loved Corey Kiner coming out of Cincinnati. Thought he should have been drafted at some point. If I was San Francisco, I would have drafted him, but they got Jordan James instead, who also I like. But they may try. I just don't know if Kiner seems like the dude that would look for the first opportunity, as he should, to be on an active roster. So that is dependent on the injuries San Francisco has, but I would love to do so. If they can, bring him back. Please, please, please get that done if you can. 49ers, they also are going to sign quarterback Adrian Martinez to the practice squad as their emergency third quarterback. They did get to retain Carter Bradley and Tanner Mordecai on injured reserve. So IR has become a stashing field for San Francisco's young and unproven players, but they have two quarterbacks already on injured reserve, Bradley and Mordecai, and they do sign Adrian Martinez to the practice squad. He wasn't at practice today. He was flying in, so he'll be at practice, I believe, tomorrow for the 49ers. And Martinez, a more mobile quarterback. You have to play Spencer Rattler and Sam Darnold and Kyler Murray in the first 3 weeks. So getting a more mobile guy in the room probably is a good idea. Martinez, I don't think you trust to be on your active roster or the emergency third quarterback, so I wonder how long he lasts. But I don't know. I'm hoping to God we never have to hear an Adrian Martinez is in the game for San Francisco. So we shall see as that goes on, but there's a reason why you're a practice squad guy. He did play for the Jets last year, so he knows the system pretty well. So that's probably why he was brought in. Again, once you get into emergency third quarterbacks, the odds are, unless they're already in your building, they're not going to be very good anyway, so let's not spend too much time there. They did bring back Robbie Chosen Anderson. That's a good move. Veteran receiver. He'll probably be elevated at some point the first 3 weeks of the season. And they also re-signed Malik Turner. Give or take. Don't love that. I'd rather have Terique Owens back, but even Terique Owens doesn't give me much. I'm shocked they didn't bring back Isaiah Hodgins. That's the move I would have made. But to each their own. It's all about semantics and who you like more. But I would have liked to have Isaiah Hodgins back. But they didn't do that. So I didn't see him sign anywhere. So maybe he got picked up and I just didn't see it. But they also brought back Brayden Willis. No shock. Knows the offense. Knows the system. Ross Dwelly's out there somewhere. Maybe he's in for a job soon. But that makes sense. Willis can give you something on special teams. He's not a great blocker, but did I think show enough during the preseason to be on the roster in some capacity. I thought he'd make it over Jake Tunges, but Willis can give you some special team stuff, which is a good thing to have on the practice squad. They also got to bring back Drake Nugent and Nick Zakelj. San Francisco really kind of held their offensive line together, even the guys they cut. Nick Zakelj, he can be your third center, third, fourth, fifth guard. So I like having him in that spot. If he was the main backup, then I'm yelling and screaming like, what are you doing? But now that he's on the practice squad, love that for him. It's probably where his career will sit for a long time and probably end. But happy to have Zakelj back in that capacity. But I would have rather have had guys like Logan Brown as a tackle, but San Francisco did not pick up a tackle via waivers or the practice squad. So that definitely could have been an option. I don't love Drake Nugent either. So not a big fan of both those guys. Certainly interchangeable with other guys out there, but preferably, I think San Francisco's biggest whiff of the entire process was not claiming Willie Lampkin off waivers from the Rams. And waivers don't work like fantasy football. You can claim anybody you like as long as they get to you. And Logan Brown was out there. Willie Lampkin was the big one. He has that finishing guard mentality San Francisco likes. I would have loved to have him over Drake Nugent, but I get it. The injury San Francisco has, there's a pretty good chance Zakelj is called up week 1 if Dominic Pooh can't go. So I get it, but Philadelphia got Lampkin, which does hurt a little bit. Now he's a practice squad guy or a really deep down depth guy for them. So we'll see there. But the one thing Philadelphia knows is offensive linemen. So that was painful to see. I was a Lampkin fan coming into the draft. I thought San Francisco should have picked him in the draft late in the rounds. They didn't do it then. I thought, now is a great chance to pick him up again. They didn't do it, so there's that. Kyle Chipto says here in the YouTube chat, though, that Logan Brown, the tackle from Kansas, was off many teams' boards for off the field issues. It's right. It's true. He actually was kicked off the field, I think, a handful of times at Kansas, so maybe the character concerns was an issue, but Lampkin just is a big hulking beast. I get Kyle likes smaller offensive linemen, so he's so particular in his offensive linemen to a point that it does kind of put a damper on the guys you like in the draft of like, that guy fits and this guy fits, and Kyle's like, I like him thin, no thickness. I like guys that can move, and I get it. They have to pull and whatnot as guards, but I don't know. Sometimes you just got to have some space eaters, but, Kyle likes small, thin, quick guards, and Lampkin isn't a one-for-one comparison for that, but I wouldn't have mind him being on the roster, albeit it did create a problem on social media because you had Jason Poe going at Larry Krueger on X today over him calling Lampkin better than Poe. And man, the drama on Niners, in the Niners, fan media realm is unlike any other that I've seen. To that I would say, just get over yourselves. Move on with your lives. It's not that big of a deal. There's room for everybody in all the opinions, unless they're stupid. And in that case, I didn't think Larry was necessarily wrong, but that is of my own accord. The one big mistake I can see being rectified, but right now I have a question about the practice squad, is San Francisco lacks a lot of outside cornerback depth. Obviously, you have Green and Lenoir. You can seemingly push Chase Lucas outside. He did it against the Chargers in the preseason, which was fine. You had Darrell Luter Jr., which still don't love that. And I'm really not even the biggest fan of Dallis Flowers, who wasn't brought back, but I thought he was fine. He proved that he can be a depth piece for you. But I know it came down to years of control, and that may have been what led them to keep Luter over Dallis Flowers. But for them to sign Eli Apple back to the team after cutting him during the preseason and training camp, I don't love that as like the last line of defense in the cornerback room. I thought there was some guys they could have claimed and didn't claim. Kobe Bryant being one of them, which I don't know what he gives you year one, but I would rather give him a roster spot than Eli Apple, who is legitimately terrible. Maybe Flowers got hurt again. I have no idea. Didn't hear anything about that. But I do think San Francisco did miss the boat on getting another cornerback that can play the outside, because Lucas and Stout can play the inside, so can Lenoir. And so can Bernardo Green. So you have nickelback figured out, whoever's playing in there, but you don't have the outside figured out. So if I have like one actual complaint, like one like legitimate gripe with the practice squad, which it's the practice squad, so I wasn't expecting much, but I really do think San Francisco needs to find another outside cornerback. It can be a veteran, it can be a young guy, but somebody you trust a little more than Eli Apple. I think they were hoping that would be Jacob Robinson, but he's on injured reserve, so that sucks. And in that case, though, you got to find somebody else, because I just don't love where that room is currently at. I like the guys at top, and I love Lucas, but after those guys, you have Saran Neal. I like him too, but would prefer he be on special teams only. Maybe they see something in him that I don't, but yeah, I just think the outside cornerback depth spot is one of an actual concern for San Francisco. They also brought back Derrick Canteen and William Bradley King, two guys I can't say much about. I like Canteen. He's young, unproven, but the coverage skills were certainly lacking during the preseason. They did, in my opinion, lose out on some really great players. I was begging and pleading them to claim Esa Pole from the Chiefs. They cut him. I wanted him to back up Colt McKivitz this year on the right tackle spot, but the Jets, who were in front of San Francisco on the waiver claim, they claimed him instead. So San Francisco lost out there. Also, wide receiver Trey Palmer was claimed by the Saints, 2 spots in front of San Francisco. I wonder if that would have been the target for them. That sucks. Too much that on him. I already talked about Lampkin. He went to Philadelphia. Then Kobe Bryant went back to the Falcons. I do think of the group, there were 2 guys I would have loved to have had that were cut by NFC West teams. Linebacker Chris Pooh Paul. Big fan of his from Ole Miss. Smaller arms, so it may have, kind of has the T-Rex arm syndrome where can't get into passing lanes very well, but love what he brings to the table. However, San Francisco being too deep there may have been an issue. Graham and Robinson are far and away better than Chris Pooh Paul now, so I don't mind that. However, he did, I believe, sign with the Seahawks. There is some conflicting reports there, so you never want to see guys that you like go to a rival, so that does stink in itself. The other guy I do think San Francisco really should have claimed, or at least signed to their practice squad, was Damian Martinez, running back from Miami. He was drafted by, I believe, the Seahawks, or at least on their roster during the preseason and training camp. They had a chance to claim him or even sign him after he was cut yesterday. They didn't do so. I thought he would have been a heck of a practice squad running back, but he is now back with the Seattle Seahawks, and maybe there are some guys they can still bring in. Logan Brown, already talked about him, but maybe the character concerns are a problem. Maybe at wide receiver, if they're not too maybe keen on Malik Turner sticking around. Maybe Javon Baker being a project guy. I think he would give you more than, say, Isaiah Neyor would with the Packers practice squad, who was in San Francisco for a short period of time. Then I think a big one is Caden Prescorn, a tight end. He is a catching machine. I loved him out of the draft this year. He's a free agent currently. I think getting him in the building, that to me is a better option than Brayden Willis. Maybe not now because special teams is an issue for Prescorn, but I do think if you carried Mason Pline last year, I would not mind carrying Caden Prescorn this year as your second tight end on the practice squad, which San Francisco is still kind of configuring everything, so we shall see the moves they make, but I would love to get Caden Prescorn in the building as a receiving tight end because San Francisco, I do think, lacks that behind George Kittle. You have Luke Farrell. You like him as a blocking guy, kind of. And Tungus is a more receiving tight end than Luke Farrell is, but you want a legitimate receiving tight end, Caden Prescorn, I think, can be that for you at a very, very cheap rate off the practice squad. And that brings us to the final topic of the show, because we've already talked a lot about the receiver room, but I do want to discuss shortly here
This episode is brought to you by Indeed. When your computer breaks, you don't wait for it to magically start working again. You fix the problem. So why wait to hire the people your company desperately needs? Use Indeed's sponsored jobs to hire top talent fast. And even better, you only pay for results. There's no need to wait. Speed up your hiring with a $75 sponsored job credit at Indeed.com/podcast. Terms and conditions apply.
Potential reunion with former San Francisco wide receiver Kendrick Bourne, because it does feel like San Francisco is wanting to make another move at wide receiver. I've already said plenty of times today that Jordan Watkins can be on IR. Jauan Jennings' situation complicates things for John Lynch and the front office. According to Matt Mayoko of NBC Sports, who is very tight end with San Francisco and what they want to do as an organization, he said, and I quote here, they have high interest in a reunion with Kendrick Bourne. Now, on paper, who doesn't love Kendrick Bourne? The energy is great. The attitude's off the charts. I loved having KB in the building. He is a tremendous person. He's energetic. He's infectious. It's just good vibes all the time. He's dancing, having fun. He brings this happy-go-lucky charm. He's like the Hunter Pence of the San Francisco 49ers, or in that case, maybe George Kittle's the Hunter Pence. And Kendrick Bourne is the Andres Torres back in 2010, dancing, having fun, wearing the chains in center field. Like, he is just a ball of energy and a good time. You have to have those guys in a locker room. And San Francisco has been known to have those dudes, mainly George Kittle, Nick Bosa, Trent Williams, albeit Kittle is one of the most energetic guys in the entire league. You have to have some guys that can keep rookies' heads straight, keep guys on track, and keep guys accountable. Kittle is one of the best guys at doing that. So is Purdy, albeit Kittle, again, being this kind of Energizer Bunny type person. Kendrick Bourne feeds into that George Kittle stream of energy, and I think can bring that to the roster. However, despite everything Kendrick Bourne can do for you off the field, in the locker room, I do think knowing the offense certainly helps him in regards to kind of jumping in on day one. He knows Shanahan's offense, played in it for 3 seasons, got paid because of his success in Shanahan's offense, was a pretty key piece in that 2019 championship run. I do think that a lot of it makes sense. I do question, one, how much money Kendrick Bourne actually wants. Apparently, there was a trade in place with the Vikings to trade him out there to Minnesota, and he wouldn't take a pay cut to get it done. So they cut him outright. He asked to get cut and say, look, I don't want to go to Minnesota. Maybe that wasn't the case, but he did not want to take a pay cut. Okay, if you don't want to take a pay cut, what do you want to sign for? San Francisco is not in a spot to sign guys to $6 million contracts in the receiver room, knowing that the odds are, again, MVS and Bourne probably wouldn't stick around the entire year once Jennings, Ayuk, and Robinson come back. So it certainly slides down those, in Bourne's case, maybe more expensive options on the depth chart, which San Francisco probably doesn't want to do. On top of that, I do think having, if healthy, Robinson, Jennings, and Bourne, that does become rather redundant. I do think that Kyle can make that work, but Shanahan isn't known to want to play more than 3, at times at the most, 4 wide receivers. So if you have Ayuk out there, and you have Jennings, and you have Robinson, and you have Pearsall, MVS ain't playing, and Kendrick Bourne's not playing. So I do think it does make San Francisco rather redundant. Now, maybe Bourne and San Francisco, you kind of use each other. Bourne proves he's healthy, which again, that's also a question. He has been hurt the last 2 seasons. He said he's healthy. They may think he's healthy, but I don't know. It's if San Francisco signs Kendrick Bourne, to me, as Fish and Chips says here, that presser Kyle and Shanahan or Kyle and Lynch looked like JJ won't be back. If they sign Kendrick Bourne after already signing MVS, that to me is a very clear indication, whether it be contract-related or injury stuff, that they're expecting Jauan Jennings to be out for a significant period of time, because that is a redundant type of player to have in your offense. Now, Jauan is the best one of the group, but you don't have Jauan and Robinson and Bourne taking up space. Those are 3 of the same guys, kind of built out of the same cloth, albeit Robinson is a more expansive route tree runner and a faster player. They just feel rather redundant, and the price tag may not add up, but I think if they bring in Bourne, that's a really bad sign for Jauan Jennings, maybe Jordan Watkins. They're just in this weird spot where I see the desire to add a body to the room, but you have Gage, Pearsall, MVS, Sky Moore. If Jauan's a problem, you have Robbie Chosen Anderson. It's only 3 weeks to get DeMarcus Robinson back. You have, Malik Turner. Like, you can survive, in my opinion, without Kendrick Bourne for 3 weeks. I get you like the guy, you want the guy in the building, but I'm just not the biggest fan of that. It makes sense, scheme fit, vibes-wise, but from a financial standpoint, there's a question mark there. And again, if you sign Kendrick Bourne, not a great look for the future of Jauan Jennings in San Francisco. So maybe Fish and Chips is right. The vibes were off in the press conference today, but not loving the idea of bringing back Kendrick Bourne. Not surprised there's interest, but would not love to bring back KB simply because it means something bad is happening with Jauan Jennings, which if it's injury stuff, that stinks. And if it's contract stuff, he's probably getting traded at that point. So, again, another massive question for the Niners to answer in the next week and a half or so. I'm hoping things with Jauan work themselves out. This is kind of the last week to get things done with a contract. So I'm hoping, fingers crossed, hoping. I don't want to have a Jauan Jennings, Nick Bosa situation where he signs on Thursday and plays on Sunday and isn't very good. Don't want that to happen. He has to practice leading in to week 1. So despite getting a clearer picture of the roster the last 2 days, he had cut down some practice squad. The receiver room is still a massive question. It's a mess. Figure it out, please. Figure it out, please. But I'd rather get new bodies in that room, fresh legs. I don't want 31-year-old receivers that have injuries. That's Kendrick Bourne. Give me some new guys, some fresh legs, some new blood. Don't try to just go back to what works, because sometimes it usually stops working. So I don't really want to bring back Kendrick Bourne, albeit I love KB. Just it feels like the time has run its course, and it's time to move beyond KB as a potential option for San Francisco. That said, I want to thank every single one of you in the YouTube chat: Fish and Chips, Kawachipto, Jedi, Strawberry, Papa J, Lori Matthews, so many more of you. Fish and Chips, the 49ers 2025, Omega Dread, Joseph Ernberg. Again, you guys are awesome. You guys are great. I appreciate every single one of you. Hope you guys watching or listening on the audio podcast can like, share, and subscribe to the show. Leave us a 5-star audio podcast review. It is the freest, easiest, and most simplest way to help us out on Apple, on Spotify, and or Google. You can also follow us on social media at 49ers_access is the X for Twitter. 49ers.access is the Instagram. And use promo code 49ersaccess, 49 ERS ACCESS at SeatGeek.com to save yourself $20 off your first purchase. Tell me down below, what should San Francisco do with the wide receiver room? Are you pro Kendrick Bourne? Are you anti-resigning Kendrick Bourne? What do you make of the practice squad? Are you happy they brought back Sebastian Valdez? Who do you think they should have claimed off waivers today on top of Jordan Jefferson? Tell me down below in the comments. And as always, my name is Sterling Bennett. And until next time, episode 3 of Cover 3, a YouTube exclusive coming your way tomorrow with Dre Area Sports and 49ers First Takes right here on 49ers Access. And until then, I am Sterling Bennett. And as always, stay faithful.